Three lemons and one orange have appeared upon the weather horizon. Two are related and two are not, but all four have the potential to impact our weather over the next several days. So we're going to see if we can't sort all of this out together, starting with the tropical Atlantic, because I am becoming increasingly concerned that a potential strike pattern is setting up as we go out in time. Let's take a look. Welcome in and happy Sunday, everyone. Hope your weekend is going well so far. It took about 5 months to get to 1,000 subscribers. 3 weeks after that, we had 2,000, and 48 hours after that, 3,000. I just am overwhelmed and honored by the growth on this channel. Thank you so much for subscribing. Give credit to God for the time that I'm able to commit to this, and certainly thank Him for you and pray for you all every day. If there's something I can pray over for you specifically about, put it in the comment section. Leave a comment about the show. Tell me where you're looking, where you're watching from, and we're going to get right into it today, though, folks. We've got a lot to get going. If you haven't yet joined the Cold Rain Weather Gang, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below and give us a like if you like the content. But we've got a lot of content today, particularly out in the tropics, and this is where we're going to start. We're seeing quite a bit of business picking up out here. We've got an orange out here now for a 50% chance of tropical development off the North Carolina coast. We've been watching this the past several days, and I've been telling you that it's been a non-tropical low, and it's likely to just go on out into the Atlantic. Well, the National Hurricane Center agrees with that assessment for the most part. There is the potential for this to acquire some subtropical or even tropical characteristics over the next 48 hours, and then it will encounter waters that are less than favorable in an environment that is less than favorable. But we've got a big lemon sitting right out here. We've got a couple other lemons that we're going to look at here in just a minute, carrying other severe type weather threats, but we're going to look at those in a second. But here in the Atlantic, we've been watching waves come off of Africa, and here they are now coming into the Atlantic. Conditions are becoming more and more favorable, and I'm beginning to start to worry a little bit when I'm looking at the pattern in general, how it's going to set up, that we might find a pattern that favors an East Coast hit should anything develop. So we'll look at that here in a second. But a 30% chance of tropical cyclone formation out here in the central Atlantic in the next 7 days, somewhere in this area. So that's what we're seeing out here. That's what the Hurricane Center is seeing too. And by the way, folks, wasn't planning to do this, but we've got a couple of geological and space weather things to talk about. Not so much space weather, but the geological update I usually save till the week. We're going to get into that because might have to add New Jersey up here to our lemon list, folks. We're going to see what that's all about here in just a second. And I've got a surprise WeatherIQ question. Again, we usually do that during the week, but this is something that's probably on the verge of happening, so I wanted to go ahead and ask you before it does. So we'll get to that in a second too. But here's your tropical Atlantic satellite image, and you can see right here, big area of convection associated with kind of a ragged wave way out here north of the Antilles near Bermuda. There's the frontal zone that's kind of hanging up from the Gulf all the way back into the North Atlantic, and we're seeing convection fire along that. If we see a low pressure develop, it will scoot in this direction as winds are blowing in that direction. Waves continue. Here's a wave coming off of Africa, a couple of other kind of weak waves out here as well as the wave train moves along. There are several other strong tropical waves that are in Central Africa that you cannot see right now, but they are coming off, moistening this region up. It's been very dry. It's been a lot of wind shear, and we've had sinking air out in the Atlantic, and so that's not very good for tropical development. We certainly don't want to see tropical development, but indications are that things are becoming more favorable as we go through the month, and I'll show you that. And then some waves that are moving into the Pacific, so we'll see those continue to move along out there and cause trouble for really no one except for naming the people that have to track and name these things. They're going out into the ocean and not bothering anyone. Here is the European model, and we're showing an operational run here. Don't take operational runs as gospel because they change every 6 hours when the models are run. But it gives you an idea. Before we were not seeing a lot of activity, and now we're starting to see things. So the European showing that little wave off the coast of North Carolina out here. Look what it does. It gets its act together and scoots it on up into the North Atlantic. Here's some waves down here in our main development region. I like to draw this for you so you can get a fix on it. It's kind of hard to see on this image, but this is generally the main development region here. So we're watching for waves coming through that region as we go on out in time. We're at Tuesday of next week here. We move it along through the week. We got a little bit of a low pressure trying to get organized out here in the middle of the Atlantic, and it scoots on up to the north. Nothing else going on off the coast on the European model, and we'll run that on out, and it develops a significant tropical system. So we could have a named storm between this one off the coast or this one out here in the Atlantic should it develop. We'll get to the next named storm and in just a minute, and we'll talk more about that. But there it goes. A few other waves coming along. Nothing else really going on here as we get way on out. This is 15 days out. This takes us to August the 18th. Now that is the European model operational run. Now we're going to look at the GFS because why not? It's a model, and it is often showing vigorous activity, and let's see what it shows. It shows that same situation that the European, or solution that the European does with that wave coming off of North Carolina. So we've got pretty good odds that something is developing there and it will move on off. Takes another low into the main development region, about the same as the European. So there's good, when you see good agreement like this, you know, thumbs up on confidence. It makes confidence go up. But look what the GFS does. It actually brings a tropical system here into the coast of North Carolina as we get toward the end of next week. Very, very weak. So we're not really, maybe a low-wind tropical storm, tropical depression, something along those lines, but it would bring rain in, not a lot of wind it looks like, and it develops another tropical wave out here. This one moves along instead of curving it way out to the north. It just brings it on in north of the Antilles, and look what the GFS does with it. Brings it right into the coast and then curves it right back up as a strong hurricane. Boy, bringing some high surf up and down the coast, but it does not do anything except impact Newfoundland. And we still see the wave train rolling along. So there are a number of solutions starting to emerge that we need to take note of and get ready for. The European ensemble shear over the next couple of weeks looks like this. We start out with some reds. Reds are higher than normal shear values, blues are lower than normal shear values, and hurricanes like low shear, tropical cyclones, tropical waves, all of those tropical systems like low shear to develop. And as we go out of time, look what we see. We see a lot of blues in the Atlantic and over in the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf off the Atlantic coast. And look at this. Boy, oh boy, we're starting to see a much more favorable environment emerge as we go on out in time. So this is a little bit concerning. If we start to see tropical waves, strong ones emerge off, they could encounter an environment that would be supportive of tropical cyclone development. And again, here's our main development region, overrun with dry air right now. But look what happens as we go on out in time. We start to see more moisture getting into the main development region, the MDR, and some dry air still persists, but it looks to lessen, at least in spurts over time. There goes, this is the European model again, so we're looking at an operational run, and so we need to remember that. You know, again, there's risk in this, but there's general agreement that we start to lose a little bit of that dry air. Look at this. We're starting to get a lot of moisture down in here. Still plenty of dry air around in the Caribbean Sea, but not as much as we've seen, at least in spurts. And so that's what happens as we go on out into the run. So that's a condition as well. Looking here at, I'm going to delete our zone. These are the ocean temperatures. Lots of untapped potential when it comes to ocean temperatures. We need warm ocean waters, and we're seeing plenty of 80s, even 90s as we get on in here into the Caribbean Sea, the Gulf, off the southeast coast approaching 90. So a lot of undisturbed, when tropical systems come over the waters, they use up a lot of that fuel. There's a lot of upwelling, so the waters cool off. That has not happened because we haven't had any tropical activity. So this is a ticking bomb in terms of fuel potential here. So we're going to watch that. The other thing that we're watching is the MJO. I've talked about this. There it is. We index so many variables in the atmosphere to give us an idea of how to talk about them as they relate to the pattern. Things like the MJO, things like the Pacific North American pattern, the NAO, and all of those, the North Atlantic Oscillation, all of those things that we INSO, so La Nina and El Nino, we put parameters around these because they impact the pattern, and then we can start to measure how they impact the pattern and look historically. And so what we've seen when we looked historically is that when the MJO gets into phase 2 and phase 3, this is a funny diagram, I know, and here's phase 3 over here. And you can see the little pulse working along. But what happens is the model predicts, so we're right here where the black meets the red, and then the model is predicting over the next couple of weeks, here's where the MJO pulse is going to track. It's an area of tropical convection in the Indian Ocean and moves into the Pacific Ocean. And this is what, this is a version of how that, basically a diagram of how that pulse moves, and when it moves slowly through phases 2 and 3, it changes weather patterns, and one of the things that it does is it enables the environment in the Atlantic to become more favorable traditionally for tropical cyclone development. So that is getting into phase 2 and 3 as we get on toward mid-late August. And so we're going to watch the Atlantic like a hawk. And here is the pattern, folks, as we take a look. This is the pattern from the European ensembles. The GFS is maybe a little bit more ominous than this, but we've got this trough as we get on out into next week. That would deflect or send winds like this and sort of act as a little bit of a barrier to tropical development or tropical cyclones making landfall. It would deflect them out into to the ocean. And as we get on out in time, we see this big ridge here strengthen the four corners. It's sort of flat though, and we've still got that trough here. And we've got a big ridge building in eastern Canada. This is sort of an NAO, a negative NAO. In the wintertime, we would look for this as a signal for cold intrusions into the east and east coast snowstorms. But right now we're thinking about it in terms of tropical development. We saw Sandy have a big NAO up here. Sandy came in a long time ago, tracked like this, and went in because this big block has a circulation around it like this, okay? So that's what we're looking at there. We've got a little bit of a trough here. If this trough cuts off, then we'll have a circulation around it too. So we're going to watch that as well. Not to say that this means anything, because there might not be a tropical cyclone here, but if it is, I'm concerned a little bit about this pattern, particularly as we go on into the next weekend and beyond. We start to get this big ridge, it's Bermuda High sitting up out here. Flow around this is going to be just like this, okay? So we're going to see a pattern develop that potentially is favorable for East Coast landfalls. And we're going to be watching this as we go out in time. That's the tropical update for today. Things are changing rapidly out here. We're going to keep you up to date on it. And right now we've got a special weather IQ question related to this that is becoming more and more pertinent. So stick around for that. And then we're going to get into lemon number 2. All right, folks, this may be coming up soon, so you need to know this. This is pertinent information. And here's the question. What will be the name of the next named tropical cyclone in the Atlantic? Damon, Edgar, Dexter, or Draymond? If you know the answer, type it in the comment section. If you don't, wait till the end of the show. I'll let you know what it is. And also let me know if you have ever been in a hurricane. We had a lot of folks talking about this in the comments of the video the other day, and certainly it's good to hear what you have to say on that. A lot of people are nervous when we get into hurricane season, and rightly so. And a lot of you folks have been through those before. If you have, share those experiences. Let me know what you've seen. I went through Fran in 1996 in Raleigh. It was not at the ocean, and it was certainly destructive though in Raleigh. A lot of flooding and lots of trees down even that far inland. Had a 90-mile-an-hour gust or something like that, I believe, if memory serves. But let me know what you're seeing there. Anyway, we've got to get into lemon number 2 right now, and that is part and partial to our next segment, which is the severe weather outlook. It's the severe weather season that just won't quit, folks. Every day we've got a slight risk somewhere. So we've got our little slight risk lemon here from basically southeastern Colorado and southwestern Kansas into the panhandle of Oklahoma and Texas down into central Texas here, almost near Lubbock. And we've got a marginal risk around that, another marginal risk up here in Oregon with a trough working in up here. But this is the main threat today. We've had a system move through overnight, and that has made this area, the northern part of this, at least conditional. Will the boundary layer recover in this area? Not sure on that. We're going to have to watch radar trends later. And then down here, where the air is a little more pristine, we have more instability. We've got an outflow from that earlier convection working in. We could see thunderstorm development later. Tornadoes certainly possible along that boundary. We've got that boundary that sits up from Montana back to the south. It's sort of stalled through the south, bringing heavy rains along it, and a possible tornado threat back here in the panhandle of Texas and west central Texas, we'll call it. And then as we get on into the afternoon, we'll see those thunderstorms develop, bringing a wind threat as well. Hail could be a big problem with mid-level lapse rates being very, very steep, rapid cooling with height, and should see enough shear to really help to build some of these supercells up and organize a couple of clusters later, although some of the short-range models aren't really showing a whole lot. That's today. Tomorrow, the threat returns back to the northern section of the country, the northern plains, northern tier, whatever you want to call this. Low tornado threat, low wind threat, low hail threat right now, but we may see this area, at least part of it, increase in coverage. And then with this trough, we've got a trough working into the northeast. We'll continue to see spokes of energy rotate around that, fire off showers and thunderstorms up here, and keep our severe weather threat in this general area as we go through the next several days. And that's what we're looking at here, folks. There is part of our, there's the rest of the surface map, and there's that boundary from Montana through the plains down into Texas, bringing a heavy rain and a severe weather threat there, and heavy rain through the southeast. A little trough here sneaking into Tennessee, and this has plagued us, folks. We've got this damming high, this big high pressure ridge. You can see these high pressure centers sort of like this, funneling air down the eastern slopes of the Appalachians. It's bringing in cooler air for sure, and working slowly, at least in this part and south of the southeast, working in some drier air, but it is taking its sweet time. I've been socked in western North Carolina, and parts of South Carolina I know has been socked in too, with drizzle and just showery weather, miserable kind of conditions for the weekend. It's not so hot, but you can't do anything outside when it's drizzling all day. Some of that should end, but we're still going to see this trough be a source for moisture pooling and bringing in some additional rain showers, and we're seeing that this morning. As we go on out through the morning hours, we get up in here to current time, we're seeing some showers working through the central plains and of course in the Tennessee Valley in the southeast. There's that complex here over Texas that sort of moved through, and we take a look at that. As we go through the afternoon, we start to get in toward the later afternoon hours. Plenty of showers and thunderstorms along that boundary, and again, a flooding threat down here. Could see several inches of rain over the next few days in the southeast, so pay attention there. See a few supercells, a couple of storms firing along the boundary here in the central plains. Couple of them here in Kansas. Even though we've seen some of that air worked over, it looks like we've got a little bit of an opportunity for some instability to recover, and certainly in Texas as well in our threat area. So any of those could produce a tornado or two and some very large hail. We could see hail over 2 inches in diameter. Things kind of dissipate a little bit overnight as we lose the heating of the day, except down here in the southeast where we've got moisture convergence along the boundary. That'll continue to ratchet up in coverage tomorrow afternoon. Again, along that trough that's sort of working west through the Mississippi Valley now. See that light up with some showers, a couple of showers working through late evening and the afternoon, northern New England. Again, back along our boundary, we're seeing a few showers and thunderstorms pop, and there's our severe weather threat up in Montana tomorrow. Could see some gusty winds up there, and that's what's going on in the next couple of days severe weather-wise. Lemon number 3, heavy rain, and I didn't draw it, but smoke is still a problem, and we've still got that New Jersey thing to talk about, and something else happening in the Ring of Fire. Folks, I know I sound like a broken record, and I really hate to do this to you, but we've got to talk smoke again. It is still a problem. I told you it's going to be for a couple of days, and then hopefully we can get better winds. But look, it is blown, as I said yesterday, all the way up into the northeast, northern sections of it. There's mid-level smoke, upper-level smoke, and low-level smoke. And the low-level smoke is what we're dealing with here, and that's why we have all these air quality alerts, the Great Lakes, the Midwest, and up into the northeast. It is just coming in spades. Got a flash flood watch down here. They're up over the southeast, and then in Texas as well, in the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas. Red flag warnings out here where it's been very dry. I've had a few people from Utah saying it's not been raining out here, and Idaho as well, and it really has not been raining all that much, and it does not look like that is going to turn around very much. But where it is not going to change either is here in the southwest, where it has been very, very hot. Extreme heat warnings and watch is still up, and we are going to see temperatures remain in the 100s, approaching 120 in spots. Unfortunately, heat advisories down in Florida and Texas too. There is the smoke map, and this is a 48-hour loop for the most part. Let's get it back over here if we can and start it off. But here is where we are today. It kind of lessens up a little bit, but as we get on out through time over the course of the next day or so, plenty of smoke in the low levels down here in the Midwest where we're watching, and that just moves on through the northeast and eventually lightens up a bit and then kind of comes back here in the northeast as we get that little trough working in and smoke around that. High pressure moves off and it kind of blows it back around. Eventually high pressure is going to be working out in the Atlantic and send the winds back around, and we'll get rid of some of this, and we get a little bit of a better trajectory up here in Canada too. There's your air quality alerts. We've seen that. Don't need to beat a dead horse. LA got a little bit of problem too, but reds up here in New England where the smoke is thicker, so watch out there. And here is the, man, this is frustrating. We've got this boundary we've been watching it settle into the southeast, but that high pressure is not strong enough to just barrel it all the way through here. So we've sort of have it hung up, the little moisture axis hung up like this, and anywhere to the south of that, you're doing in the mugginess, and up to the north, it's feeling like fall, and we just can't quite get it through North Carolina here. But hey, that's how it goes. That's life in the weather world as we go through the next couple of days. Really, the European keeps it sort of lingering in place, then surges that moisture back in as we get back to Monday in parts of the southeast. Still looking great up here in New England. Dry out here, folks. You guys aren't getting a break here in California, Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Arizona. I mean, it's just not good in terms of rainfall. You need some and you're not getting it, and all the moisture continues to be tropical out here. The GFS actually keeps the tropical moisture a little farther south. I tend to go with the European because it's a more reliable model, but it's not always right. It's not infallible. Temperatures this afternoon, plenty of 70s and 80s, so pleasant across much of the country except the far southern tier where it's muggy and then dry in the southwest, but very hot in the interior sections of the northwest. Warm as well, cooling off with the influence of that trough up here in the northwest. Tomorrow still hot in the south west, and Texas surging up, 90, surging back into the central plains along that frontal boundary, and then 80s everywhere else, 80s and 70s as far as you go onto the east. To start your work week, we'll get into the longer range later on, but just to give you a couple of maps here on it so you know what to expect. We get on out into Monday, certainly see showers and thunderstorms predominantly over the south. We'll see impulses working along the northern tier, sparking off showers and thunderstorms too. A lot of that stuff will dissipate overnight as we get into Tuesday night and we get on out into Tuesday afternoon. Same old story, trough and a frontal zone and moisture surging in across the south, keeping us rainy over here. And there's a new little piece of energy working across the Dakotas, bringing probably another threat of severe weather up there as we get into Tuesday. Looking at total precipitation, again, hard to see on this map, but anywhere from South Carolina back into Georgia, back to the South Florida, you're looking at, you need some rain down here in South Florida, but you're going to get a lot of it. We don't want to see it come down in such a hurry because that leads to flooding. But you could see anywhere from 4 to 6, even 7, 8 inches in spots where these thunderstorms are really tropical, and they're going to squeeze everything out that they possibly can. A few inches here in the Texas-Oklahoma border around Wichita Falls, and then up here along the northern tier where we see impulses continuing to move around in that direction. And finally, the 6 to 10 day prediction from the Weather Prediction Center, August 8th through the 12th, signal for above up here in the northern plains, all the way through the mid-south Ohio Valley and back down into the southeast and below in the northeast and below in the northwest where we really need it. Unfortunately, I don't have good news there. And there is Alaska looking at mostly above, well, near normal to above, west to east, and then Hawaii solidly above. Temperature-wise, there's the signal for below normal, the biggest signal up here in the northern plains where we find a trough working in, and this trough lingering over the southeast probably due to clouds and precipitation, and just having a trough in general, keeping it a little cooler aloft, keeps it a little cooler at the surface. But big signal for above with that big ridge building into Canada and the flat ridge over the desert southwest, keeping it warm out there. Below in Alaska, above in Hawaii. And that is your weekend forecast, long range, whatever you want to call it. We'll take a look at the long range a little bit more in depth later next week. But right now, we're going to take a look at the last segment of the show, the surprise geological outlook, because there's a couple of things that are going on. So I don't usually do this outlook on the weekends, but good night. Look at this. Look at this big picture of what? A volcano going off in Indonesia, sending ash 11 miles up into the atmosphere. It's gone off twice in the last several days. This was yesterday, so the couple days before that, but it blanketed villages with ash. As interesting as these pictures are, we have to remember they impact real people, folks, and we want to be mindful of that. But this is just an amazing sight. Volcano shoots the ash cloud up. Ash cloud gets charged. You see lightning bolts in it. What a photo. This is on AP, but I don't know who took the photo. I'm sure it says down here, it's Geological Agency of Indonesia's Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Okay, they're the ones that took it. We'll give them credit, but that's a beautiful photo of a very deadly event. Another volcano went off in Russia due to, they think, the earthquake, the 8.0 earthquake that happened the other day. And it wasn't an 8.0. I think it wasn't 8.8. That's what it was. It was an 8.8. And they think that was responsible for it. It hasn't erupted in 600 years. So that's crazy. Nothing else that we're watching in the Ring of Fire. Indonesia's way down here, so that's where that volcano's at. But it's still in the Ring of Fire, and that's what's going on. But look at this, man. New Hasbrook Heights in New Jersey experienced a 3.0 magnitude earthquake yesterday. If you live up there, put it in the comment section if you felt that. I've never felt an earthquake. I've always wanted to feel a minor one, but not a big one. But that's an unusual spot for one. So it's way up here near New York, just north of New York. You can kind of see that here. And so there was some shaking going on with that. What a surprise that must have been for you all up there. And so that's it, folks. That brings us into the answer to today's Weather IQ question. The question was, what will be the name of the next named tropical cyclone in the Atlantic, which may occur at any time over the next 48 hours? Damon, Edgar, Dexter, or Draymond? And the answer, of course, is Dexter. Dexter is the next named storm in the alphabet. The hurricane's center, well, let's say it this way. The Atlantic and the Pacific have two different lists of names that we work off of, and here is the list for the Atlantic, and you can see that showing up here. The next one is Dexter, then Aaron, then Fernand, and Gabrielle, and I'm not going to name all the rest of them. You can read those for yourself. But that's it, folks. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Sunday afternoon. Getting ready to head out to church myself, but thank you all for the support again, and we will be back tomorrow. Got that dentist appointment with my son, Cold Drizzle, so please pray over that. I put a short reel up yesterday with him on there. Check that out if you get a chance. But anyway, that's it. Have a great day, folks. We'll be back tomorrow.